Greetings, greetings. Um, today, I'm just reasoning with some of the things that are unfolding, and you know, with every day that goes by, I just reason with a lot of the lessons and the observations that have come out of being in a cult that I did not know was a cult going in. I just thought it was a positive community, and there are just many lessons because you have to um, or when you are outside of a cult and you can separate yourself from what was going on, you can see a lot more of the patterns. I saw many things when was in there, but the way people are kept separated and the way you kept separated, the way you're manipulated in terms of how you spend your time is manipulated, how you're prevented from having conversations with other people that are also in the cult. It's just so much manipulation. The way information is withheld, a lot more of it makes sense once you've been out of it. Additionally, as I have stated before in some previous videos, there are many dots that I would not have been able to fully connect had I not been inside, living in that cult for the length of time that I did. There are very real and serious mind control games that are played on people. Um, and people have a tendency to take this for granted, like it's like it's a light thing, and it's not. It's real. There's actually mind techniques, and yes, it could be somebody intelligent with several degrees. There are numerous women within this particular cult um, that have master's degrees, right? And many people that are talented or that come from families that have a means, even here in Central America. So I really want to emphasize this and I want to encourage people so that we can get benefit out of what we're learning. If there's a purpose for you to watch this video, hopefully it's for you to gain some insight so that you can notice patterns and refine your assessment of people that you let into your life, into your finances, around your children, and so on. And so that we can develop sharper critical thinking skills, which hopefully and would result in you making better decisions, more productive decisions in your life, so that you can school the young people and the young adults that are around you who still need guidance. As a people and as a community, we need to be school, or we would benefit. I like to tell people what to do. We would benefit from being able to discern. People talk with all these words around all these terms, but to a young person, these are subtleties. They don't really understand what discernment is. And if they don't have a frame of reference, quite often we're throwing concepts out that people don't understand how to put it into play. Somebody said to me at 19 or 20, use better discernment. Okay, it sounds good. It sounds like it makes sense, but I may not understand the subtleties. Someone that is not familiar with a cult leader doesn't necessarily know what that means, like this, especially if they're not familiar with somebody running game, on them. So, there's a couple of particular incidents that are going on, and so many things make me reflect on Joseph Robinson, aka self-proclaimed High Priest Kwatamanifraud. I call him the High Priest of Deception. Um, Self-proclaimed Earth Solar Messiah, self-proclaimed soul seer, soothsayer, spiritual healer. First of all, let me say, you are your own spiritual healer. If anyone is going to heal you, it is you. Additionally, the body heals itself when it's in a proper environment and is given proper nutrition and we stop clogging it. Simple. This is simple wisdom. And manipulators and con artists are running circles around us because we don't have discernment. And a lot of us have not been schooled in certain things. It's not something that we need to be embarrassed about. And then also sometimes having the ego or thinking that we know everything is what will end somebody up in a cult. Some people I can think of a couple of people that may have been older, that may have been more privy to Joseph Robinson, that did not want to, maybe they couldn't totally articulate. I remember one man saying under his breath, an older man, could have been, must be about his peer, maybe a little younger, say that egomaniac. He said it under his breath. It was real subtlety, but he never went on to explain why. But I did store it in my mental Rolodex. And there was one other woman I can remember saying that one of his previous mates, now someone that, this is from many years back, who said to me, you need to watch him before you send young people around him. And I was thinking, well, have you seen anything? Have you spoken to him? And she said, yes. I've spoken to one of his, she said, I spoke to one of his mates, or somebody who's bassoon as a mate or something like. No, she said it was one of his mates. Yeah, she said it was one of his mates. Yep, she sure did. She said it was one of his mates. Now, this is somebody that's not popular on the scene, but she's in the Living Foods community. And she said, I don't understand why he has to get younger and younger mates. Now, this is somebody from way back in the day. So what do? Me asking questions and not feeling totally comfortable. I'm still in New York. I called Joseph Robinson on the phone. Remember, he's technically legally blind. And I say, this person said that you have to get younger and younger mates. They don't understand why you have to get younger and younger mates. He just started laughing and cracking up and said all of the sisterhood, all of his mates were in the background, while in Belize. I'm on the phone with him from the States, and said, oh, they just thought that was so hilarious. And his answer and response was, my mates have been with me for years. And, basically because of the Raw Living Foods, they're looking younger and younger. Okay, said it with enough conviction. I still stored it in my mental Rolodex, but I did peep. That still wasn't a direct answer to the question. It still wasn't specific. And cults and manipulators never answer questions directly. And if you continue to ask questions, they will get quite upset, which is a red flag and a pattern, if you continue to question them. Eventually, it gets so annoyed. It's like, who are you to question them? Especially as they have the title, the self-proclaimed title is high priest, because eventually they become, we don't have the right to speak to him directly. Again, these are nuances and subtleties that you folks out there behind your screens won't be able to peep, as people are vouching for this man who they have not lived with. And I'm going to say this, well, it goes for males and females, have an allegiance to this brother's image, or this man's image, and what he represents for them. And again, because of the loaded terms like natural, love, brother and sister, a lot of these trigger words can lull us to sleep, and especially for women, make us lower our defenses. So today's video, who's protecting you from the protection? I just observed something, and just, many people go into cults because they're looking for protection, right? Women, especially looking for protection. And what I mean by that is that as we look at the climate of, and this is classic for all cult leaders, all of them. I could name numerous, but you can think of cults, black and white. They're separating themselves from Babylon and from the ways of the world, and we have to isolate ourselves, and our ways are more pure than their ways. And it's this thing of, you're separating yourself from these behaviors, and then there's the outfit that's put on. This whole image is constructed to make you believe that the same behaviors that lie out in Babylon that are more blatant don't exist, because people say certain words, call you brother and sister, or because you have an outfit on, because you have a skirt that's flowing down to the floor, or that you think that the males in this cult have this pristine behavior, that they are kind to women, and they're protective, in particular of women. Because in an environment that is very volatile, where women literally have to be concerned about our safety, being violated sexually, Any moment in time, will there be no protection around you if you're a young woman, particularly if you're single? That's a bloated one. If you are not mated or you're not married, because you're not following the ways of this holy book, or because you're not within our community, you're not under the covenant, you're not under the protection of the high priest, you're not under the protection. So part of the lore is you're not protected out there. You need to come in here so you can be protected. There's one point at which I remember him saying, this is the best thing that ever happened, for you. And all of these things, the context, the manipulator constantly controls the context. And in numerous videos, several people, I think primarily women, have commented, "Aren't you worried?" And I get that, I understand, but it's like it's a fear that we're walking around with, which is understandable, of being safe and protected. So part of the lure of these cults is that you'll be protected. But something we're not banking on is who's protecting you from the protection. If I think of all the cults and the folks on 125th Street in Harlem, and folks with all kinds of outfits on and speaking masculine and stuff like this, what is your guarantee that they're protecting you, other than the rhetoric that they're saying? Because overall, there has not been a demonstration of protection of women and children. So I'm not going to turn this into men can be abused too. Correct. But that's not what we're talking about, because in the vast majority, with very few exceptions, that's not the case. So the distinction I want to make is that women are lured into cults to seek protection for themselves physically. They're thinking they're getting a man that's going to be kind and safe and follow the rules of the holy book, or the tenure, that because they eat raw living foods, they're not going to be verbally abusive. And what is masquerading as protection, we realize, is actually control. Looking back, and again, in terms of schooling and educating young men and young women, especially young women, but young women and young men, in the immaturity of young people, what sometimes a young woman may think is protection, sometimes is immature control, right? It doesn't mean that a young man is not is mature enough to understand, make the distinction between I possess you and I own you, and I'm being protective, with respect. Nobody else can disrespect you, but I can't. I can manhandle you because you my woman. Or what we even see in our community, aunties are not being protected, daughters are not being protected, and this extends also to women too, because in an allegiance, and I experienced this within the cult, that women have an allegiance to protection, but as I've seen and I've observed certain patterns, a lot of times you don't know if these women are being, and they show signs of being, definitely verbally and emotionally abused, and sometimes physically abused. So on the surface, when they're seeking protection from Babylon, who is protecting you from the protection? There are some males who feel extremely uncomfortable and what's the word? Get upset if you were to say, I don't feel, and I noticed this several times, if I express, I don't feel comfortable with your tone, and we do know that a predator can have a calm tone and then explode later, right? You can have a clergy neck piece on, you can have robes on, and you can still violate somebody. Somebody could be dressed as a woman and still have a male genitals and still force themselves on you with their physical brawn. So we're lured a lot into, and we're thinking, we're misled into thinking we're going to be protected, but I don't think we're being realistic with, quite often you'll need protection from the protection. And a couple of recent incidents is the young woman in a McDonald's in the States, where she's inside the restaurant and this male reaches across and yanks her and grabs her. And the employees, said the management, nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew what to do. And you have to think, were there any men in place? Were there any men in the place to defend her? So the reality The reality, and this is something that women and men, young people need to hear. So you can share what your solutions are. But while folks are trying to figure out how to take a stand or not, the reality is whether in America or Central America or around the globe, we're not protected. If you speak out, against molestation, or if you call the police, you're made to feel that you are a traitor to the race. You're not about Black people. You're emasculating Black men, and you have no recourse inside of a courthouse. No one's rushing. Police are not rushing to protect you. We definitely see the pattern of folks focusing more on the person, the young person, the woman that was violated, how she wanted it, what was she doing, and all the attention is distracted off of the perpetrator, the person that physically abused the person. So fortunately, this young woman had taken some kind of self-defense or boxing when she was younger. And I'm sure it was a shock to him that the young woman was able to get some blows in and inflict some consequences to this man. And I have to say, with all respect and with every ounce of femininity and love and care in my body, that the reality is there is nothing more feminine than protecting yourself and your offspring. And something that my godfather said to me years ago, in terms of, we have mouth and all this other stuff. Not that I'm not a disrespectful person, but he said, remember, you're not a man. And he said, you must be able to inflict a consequence on your adversary. And I'm so thankful to my godparents because that was quite a gem. So women were required in order to protect ourselves to be able to think. And it is, we're overdue for applying that thinking and critical thinking in every area of our lives. And a big part of it in terms of prevention is more effective than cure, is making better choices, more mature choices around who we're choosing to engage with, who we're choosing as mates. Because this trend of choosing people because they seem to be protectors, or they seem like they have money and they have together, or choosing people because they have muscles and a nice body, if we look at the results, it has not served us too well. Overlooking morals and character, and just lusting, after folks, lust is a part of life, but throwing all logic out of the window is not serving us. And it's been observed in these cults. And I'm going to give an example. One, I encourage people to, as I've said before, go through the playlist on this channel. There's an extensive, quite a list, as much as I could put together, for basic education of cults, Black and white. And note James Bevel, right? Who, if people were to connect the dots, which sometimes I'm waiting to see if people are going to take the time and connect the dots. There's so much information. If people just take the time, there's so much information there. I can't spell it all out for you, and just connect the dots because it's actually connected to Joseph Robinson. But in any event, James Bevel, if anyone out there knows who he is, he went to jail for molesting his daughters, numerous of his daughters, didn't deny it, had documentation of his whole philosophy around breaking in and educating his daughters around sex. Now, we don't want to hear this. The men don't want to hear it. The women don't want to hear this about our leaders. Leaders, if we can call them that, these folks in these positions of so-called leadership that we have placed them in. So because somebody's registering people to vote or marching on Washington, or they're eating raw fruits and vegetables, for some reason we give them a pass to being vetted. And I'm going to say this at this point, this is going to apply to women too. Healthy boundaries are going to be effective, or it's going to be beneficial for us to put that in effect with everybody, healthy boundaries, because there are numerous young men that say they were violated by babysitters. So it is up to us to set a standard, right? So again, people are being lured to these cults, women thinking they're going to be safe, and they have no idea of what they're getting themselves into, because they have not lived among these cults. When you go into a cult, there's a lot, the cult leaders and the people that are already vested and have a loyalty again, the people that already vested and have a loyalty have already been programmed and given a lot up, that are connected sexually, have given up their resources, have made vows of allegiance. They're not going to be on the same page as the people that are freshly coming into a cult. And part of their role is to indoctrinate other people in, and to their PR for the cult. Again, women primarily are used to lure men into the cult, because men look at the attraction of the woman. This cult in particular, they're lured by, and it's not vegan virgins. His daughters are collateral, and it just really makes you think of like, it makes you think of what was going on in Africa or wherever. It makes you think of history of people that use their daughters to marry, as collateral. And maybe in a certain kind of healthy context, that could be something else. But I'm just saying the law of vegan virgins, who primarily you can control, because it was set out of Joseph Robinson's mouth. Basically, these girls, his daughters, they're not going to give you the headaches that the women out there would give you. So the men are being groomed to so-called protect the women, but it's also the control part is what the women are not banking on. And so it's important for us to critically think and take a look at what is the distinction between control, extreme control, and protection. Because it's like almost like women are made to, it's like we can't think for ourselves because we don't have the brawn, of a man. And we have to really think, this is part of this other this young cult leader, when he goes into a rage about being a man and a protector. Interesting, the raw vegan elder, Joseph Robinson, I watched him have the same version of the same thing, when I ask questions, you're not going to emasculate me, because, basically because I'm not going to emasculate him when I was just asking him questions. So there've been so many times where I see, even though it's a different flavor, I've seen so many similar patterns between Joseph Robinson, aka self-proclaimed Earth Solar Messiah, and this other cult leaders. So the other thing is that women are a lot of times we're paralyzed. Again, people have asked several times, are you worried? Are you worried? And focusing on the worry or the fear winds up rendering us paralyzed and immobilized to make decisions, because we're so scared. Is the system going to get me out there? Or are they going to kill me out there? Joseph Robinson would go out with his mates, who scanned the news and would bring the news back into the community. And every night he would, basically tell us a lot of the bad news, pretty much all bad news that was happening around the world. And the pattern was, is used to make sure that people don't want to leave the cult, to make sure they know that, the women won't feel safe. And it's understandable, right? Because the cult leaders or any manipulator is going to tell you a lot of truth. But a lot of it is getting dark here. A lot of it is manipulated. So I remember once him saying, like, he felt so good. He's like, I got him. A few of his daughters, that they, he felt secure. They wouldn't want to leave the land and would never want to leave the community. Again, there's nothing wrong with you wanting to stay close to your family and community, but it's the absolute control. So he's very clear. He has to groom and control the men that he brings into his daughters. And there's some other information that I'm privy to as well, which, FYI, just for the record, a lot of that information is uploaded in a safe space in the cloud. Should anything ever happen, a lot of the evidence is up in the cloud in a safe space. Everything can be revealed online, but when it's time, shall be revealed. And it's in a safe space that other folks, trusted family member has access to. So, have we gotten to a point where we're so fearful that Black women have just become a commodity to be used for sex and numbers? A lot of times within the conscious community, it's like there's the rhetoric that comes out of the lips, out of the mouths, that we're God and we're queen, but the behaviors seem to link up with one of ownership, more so than protection. It's not one of respect. It has been one of control, and even when the cameras are off and in privacy, intimidation and control of women. And Black women, we're intelligent human beings, and the reality is, and hopefully men folk and women, but men folk can hear this with some level of understanding and respect, that when no one is there to protect us, as is quite often the case, we have to respect and protect ourselves. And we don't have the luxury to ask for permission, or to wait for the cops to come or people to come. So if nothing else, hopefully Black women would start to marinate and consider in reality that we've got to be healthy and eat fruits and vegetables, not just for the vanity of having long natural hair, but it's our responsibility to be healthy enough to move in case of an emergency, to protect ourselves, to protect our children. There's nothing more feminine. And understand that quite often we think we're getting some protection when it's really it's control. And for people that don't have a frame of reference, we don't see it coming. We don't see it coming. And there are conditions that are placed on the protection. If you're only going to be protected if you give over your resources, if you agree to have children, if you agree not to talk back, if you agree to go whatever the decision making and your critical thinking is overlooked. That's the only way that you can be protected. Those are the conditions of protection. And I'm not going to drag this on too long, but I can ask this question, but I know the answer. With all the stuff that people want to say, in our community, and people can say, oh, we have family members, look at they eat and they drink and they smoke and all this other stuff. And I will say this, with there are some exceptions. I haven't observed that, well, there are some exceptions, but Black women have not really placed conditions on the protection. Maybe that's changed, I don't know, but overall, inherently, whether it's 300 pounds or 200 pounds of eating meat, we protect our children. If we have to go up to the schoolhouse and protect them, if we have to stand up against a cult leader, if we had to go toe to toe with a male to protect our children, that is what mothers do, and that's inherent in Black women. And unfortunately, and I can say I understand many reasons why, and I can make rationalizations and justifications for why, but it's not being reciprocated, and that's just it. We're not being protected by the music, the people, and it's the reality is, romantically, there's no romantic Prince Charming coming to save us. There's no one, when something happens, you're lucky if somebody pulls out a cell phone, right? And as I've said before, and people keep saying, are you worried? Are you worried? What are you going to do? Are you going to help protect me? Are you even going to protect yourself? And we're made to feel that we're not spiritual and not feminine if we protect ourselves. And the harsh reality is that is something we're going to have to rethink, because folks are not hearing themselves. And if we are in denial, there's more to come. So we may have to explore, it's time that we explore the possibilities. First of all, getting ourselves in shape, releasing our body of the excess weight by not eating garbage, for very practical reasons of protection and health. Right. And so we're not depressed and we can think on our feet and be healthy. Many people may not get married to be made. Your life is not over, but we are mothers in the community, and we deserve to be healthy and happy. And you have to be able to protect yourself, period. I know we don't want to say it, and it may sound horrible. You may say, oh, I'm not going to be chosen, or you're going to be looked at as not feminine if you say, you have to protect yourself. And it's gotten really dark here, so I'm going to have to end this video. But that's the reality. That is a reality. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to deal with these reality. It doesn't feel good to deal with reality that you have elders that would scam you. It doesn't feel good to deal with the reality that women will turn a blind eye to our own children being molested or watching what's happening to other women as they're being lured into a cult. But women will do it also for attention and also because they are broken. You know what I'm saying? Men that have been emasculated in these cults, they're going to turn a blind eye. There are men that are turning a blind eye to our abuse, and no one is coming to save us. And so we keep playing into, oh, it's not feminine, to protect ourselves. If something, and for the men that are concerned, and I'm saying this with all due respect, why would you want a woman that if something happened to you won't defend the children? It is feminine, and we have to stop. Let me not say we have to do anything. I invite people, and I invite the men to just relook at it. Am I saying we want to get on the going to the army and stuff? No, I'm not saying that. But the reality is, other countries, in Israel, the women go into the army. That's just basic service. We're living in la la land. In terms of people that talk about us having our own communities and this and that. Harsh reality, especially if you want to step outside of the United States. What kind of security do you have? As a single woman, a couple women, everyone wants to go travel and eat pineapples. What kind of security do you have? You are going to be a security. And if you're linked up with people that are going to run when it comes to protecting you, that's what people are running, turning their eye on the train, or if turning their head when you're being raped, whether it's in your family or outside of your family. People are turning a blind eye to your protection. So what are we waiting for? It's a reality check. So I'm always inviting people. Let me tell you, a simple fruits and vegetables lifestyle done with some legumes, enough protein, it's worth its weight in gold. It had nothing to do with Joseph Robinson and being in a cult. It would behoove us to get physically in shape to protect ourselves and not feel like we are the damsels in distress, and stop waiting for validation, because it's not coming. And when it comes, it usually comes with a ticket attached to us of manipulation. It's not all brothers, but we don't have the time to be wishy-washy and unclear. So it's gotten dark out here, and the mosquitoes are doing their thing. So I'm going to sign off. Alrighty then. Yeah, because if we don't do something, it doesn't appear that any help is forthcoming. Help.